Okay, so to clarify this change where the lighting control devices have now moved to the appliance standards out of Title 24 and into Title 20. The way we split this up is the appliance standards cover any device that works, that can operate on its own without being connected to any other device. So if you've got a standalone Hawk sensor that just sits up there, takes line voltage in, controls half a dozen luminaires, that's a device that works on its own. It doesn't need to be connected to a system. It doesn't have any kind of communication protocol. So that is regulated under Title 20. And what that means actually, in terms of the state as a whole, is that every OX sensor that's sold in California now has to meet that requirement, not just the ones that are put into new construction. So, in theory now, for the last 6 months, anytime you go to Home Depot and buy any kind of OX sensor, that OX sensor should be fully compliant with Title 24, because all OX sensors now have to be fully compliant with Title 24 because they have to meet the appliance standards. They have to be certified to us. Again, every dimmer, every photosensor, every occupancy sensor sold in the state of California has to be certified to the Energy Commission. And we look at its specs, cut sheets, and we say, yep, that looks good to us, or no, you guys need to put in an extra flashing light that does this. So they should all be meeting the standards you need. But then separately, we then deal with systems. So a lighting control system is anything that either is not designed to function on its own or is supplied into the building as part of the system. So if you have an occupancy sensor that has an address, it can be put onto a DALI network or BACnet or whatever, that is now a system. And that system as a whole that you put into your building has to be compliant with Section 110.9 of Title 24 of the building. Now luckily, we made the requirements the same. It doesn't matter whether you're complying with Title 20 for an appliance, a device, or whether you're complying with Title 24 for a system, the requirements are the same requirements. Your photo control has to be able to dim down to no more than 35% and blah, blah, blah. So all the specs are the same. So mostly, if you build up a system from Title 20 compliant devices, you will get a Title 24 compliant system, mostly. One of the differences, one of the new things is this is a general change across the whole of Title 24 this time around, is we've tried to move away from being very nitpicky, and we've tried to we've introduced a new thing, well, they're not completely, but we've now created a lot more of them, which are certificates of installation. And the idea is that whoever is the installer and is qualified to be the installer under the building code signs that certificate of installation and says, this thing that I installed is compliant with the code. So we've got somebody who's got a license will sign that installation certificate and say, yep, I put this thing in, it's code compliant. So you'll find for pretty much any lighting control system, somebody's got to sign one of those certificates.
Owen, I'm sorry, would you recap that again? So does the guy with the seasoning license or the electrical engineer, who's supposed to sign after installation?
We have, I think either of those would be. We have a section at the beginning of the code, I've forgotten the section with reference now, 10-114 maybe, that sets out the requirements for who can sign the various certificates.
So it's a licensed professional.
It's basically it's who you'd expect it to be. It's a licensed building professional. And I think HERS raters are required for some res certificates. I'm not 100% sure, but you want to check the beginning of the code. It sets all of that out. Questions about this one? This is mainly an administrative change. It doesn't really affect